Hello and welcome to another episode of the Better in Business podcast. I'm Jennifer Vanderwaal, stepping in for Jeannie Savage as your co-host. In today's episode, we're diving into cybersecurity, specifically around phishing, AI-driven attacks, and what practical steps you can take to protect your business and your clients.
You've tuned into the Better in Business podcast, and I'm your host, Jeannie Savage. I'm a multi-award winning business veteran and head of the Strategic Bookkeeper Network. My network of strategic bookkeepers is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs do better in business. This podcast aims to challenge your thinking. If you're not thinking the right way, how can you act the right way? Each episode will dive into key drivers of success, which I also call the rules of the game. Learn the rules and play to win. Let's go. I like to start every episode by reminding you that it is globally recognized that pillar number one for success is up-to-date, accurate bookkeeping, which is the only way you can see how your business is performing in terms of profit and cash. If your books aren't right up to date, visit betterinbusiness.global, drop me a line and I'll connect you with a certified strategic bookkeeper. Fire your bookkeeper and hire a strategic bookkeeper. Bookkeeping is a cost, whereas strategic bookkeeping is an investment that averages a 10x return on the fees.
Today, we're joined by Nick Oles, who's the founder of Entoo Security. Nick is a cybersecurity expert with over 15 years' experience across military, government, and private sectors. He specializes in helping small accounting and finance firms build security programs from the ground up without enterprise-level budgets. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having me on today. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite things to do, to talk about cybersecurity, to help small firms stop bad actors from impacting good people. And I'm really happy to be here today to chat with you.
Fantastic. So we're going to dive straight in and we're going to start around the myths and the risks. So for firms who think they're too small to be targeted, how wrong are they? And why are accounting and bookkeeping firms such an attractive target?
Yeah, this is a great question. And we have a lot of small clients that are 1 to 10 person shops. They're these solopreneur, like accounting, bookkeeping, CFO, tax professionals. And that is like a common myth, exactly what you said, that they're too small, the regulations don't apply to them and things like that, or they get around to it when they can and they get really busy. And owning a business, it's tough. You all know that. But to put that myth to rest, attackers, they're mostly driven by money. So they want to get money out of the attack that they're conducting. The thing that accounting and CFO and bookkeeping firms that have that's very valuable to them is data. So you guys in this industry are constantly interacting with social security numbers, national ID numbers, things like that are of value to individuals for selling identity theft or processing returns fraudulently, things like that. So if I'm an attacker, instead of me going out to 50 different people trying to compromise their systems, trying to collect all their information, if I go to where the data is, much like in traditional physical security, like banks hold a lot of money, if I go to the places that hold all of that data, I have a larger return on my investment. So if I target a small firm that has a bunch of individual records, that could generate a lot of money for me. The other way that they make money is to ransom or extort you to get your data back. So they will encrypt your data. They will put a very hard, sophisticated piece of malware on there that makes your files unreadable until they're decrypted, and they will request that you pay them to give that access to that data back and to those records back. So it's a twofold attack here. Like they can either extort you for money by locking your files, or they can just sell all of the records that you have on your clients. And that has a lot of different negative impacts on your firm, regulatory impacts, reputational impacts, things like that, that could have a long-standing impact to you as a small business owner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think exactly what you said, that there's this real flow-on effect that by targeting those of us who work in the industry, they're not just able to target and perhaps use our data, but also perhaps access and use our clients' data either against us or against the clients themselves. So there is that really big risk there, even if you are a small solopreneur.
Yeah, and there's one more myth I want to touch on a little bit too that I hear a lot of is we will talk to people all the time, my other partner, Nick Mullen, and myself, and we hear a lot from these small firms that, oh, I use QuickBooks Online or Xero Online or FreshBooks Online. I'm not really a target. And that's not accurate either. Just because you use an online portal and you log in with your credentials and all of the data stays in this online portal doesn't mean that you're still not at risk, because chances are you're saving some data to your PC, whether or not you realize that or you admit that or not. But even if you aren't and you're just doing this in the web portal, if a malicious attacker or a cyber criminal, whatever you want to call them, if they get access to your machine, they have a piece of malware on there, what's to stop them from taking screenshots periodically? That's a very rudimentary tactic, to take screenshots of you logging in to an accounting system, to one of these online platforms to process payments, or if you're just making debits and credits or bookkeeping entries, things like that. They can screenshot that information and say, hey, I have access to your system. Here's the proof. I can then contact your client and tell them, hey, they're not doing the right things. You should get someone else. Or I can contact you and say, hey, I have all these records. If you don't pay me, I will release all of this, proving that you weren't taking security seriously, that you've been compromised, and things like that. So that's another very common myth. Just because you're using online portals does not make you immune to cyber attacks. It doesn't mean you should be doing some of the basic hygiene things that we'll talk a little bit later on. And these aren't things that a large enterprise budget is going to afford. These are things that like a single person can do if you just have a laptop or a desktop or something at home that you're using, to make it a lot harder, make you more resilient.
Yeah, great. So as you said, we will target some actionable steps. But can you explain to me, just in plain English, what is phishing and how has AI made it more sophisticated or harder to detect?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of my favorite topics. So I wrote a book on phishing. It's called How to Catch a Fish. You can buy it on Amazon, and we can talk through the kind of stuff. But I wanted to teach people exactly what you just asked me, what phishing is, how to detect some of these malicious messages or information that's sent to you, and what to do with it. But to level set here, phishing is just when a threat actor uses technology to deceive an individual to take a specific action. There's really only 3 actions that you can take in a phishing message that the attackers want you to do on their behalf. And that is either to click a link, interact with some sort of attachment that they send you, or to provide them sensitive information. Now, of those 3 things, they could be asking for your login information, they could be having you download a file that's got malicious software, or they could be asking something sensitive like, hey, what is your banking information? Or I need you to change the routing information for this payment, or I need your password to the system or social security number, something like that. But those are the only 3 actions, but it does come in multiple forms. So we talk a lot about email phishing. If you've had an email account longer than a day, you've probably got a phishing email, whether you know it or not, because they're all over. It's been going on since the beginning of email. I've been in this space for 15 years. Phishing was a problem when I started, and it's still a problem right now. Attackers use it because it works, it's effective, people are busy, they click on links, they download attachments, they get confused, and they produce really convincing phishing emails. It's not just always on the user. But email is by and large the most common delivery method for this type of attack. The second one that we're seeing more of more recently, probably in the last year or two, is QR code phishing. So we call this quishing. This is where someone sends you an email or maybe a message or something like that's got a QR code that you can scan with your phone. Sometimes they're legitimate QR codes, maybe to log into something or to access a resource. But a lot of times attackers now are using those to provide a malicious link to you. So you pull out your phone, You scan this QR code, it takes you to a page, it asks you to log in. You think you're logging into the real Microsoft, OneDrive, whatever, or DocuSign, whatever the lure is, and then you provide your credentials, and really you're providing it to the attacker, not to the actual service. The third form that we see more of is like voice calling. That's phishing. That's where you might get like a phone call requesting this information for you, or paired with something and saying, hey, I'm following up on an email that I sent you. I need this information really quick. I need you to sign this form or process this payment, whatever that is. Or I just need some information from you. I need to know where you store your data, or I'm a help desk individual. I'm trying to fix this problem on your machine, things like that. And then the last one is called SMS or smishing. So this is where they'll send you like a text message, and it could say a lot of different things. In the US right now, we're seeing a lot of these being toll-based themed. So when you travel to a different state, or you travel on a turnpike somewhere, you might have to pay a toll to travel in between the states. A lot of attackers right now are using these and saying, hey, you owe this toll for driving through this particular state. To pay that, click this link. You click the link, and then you go to their page, and it's usually they're asking you for information or asking you directly for a payment to say, hey, you owe X amount of money. Maybe it's not even a large amount, but they're just trying to verify that information that's valid. But those are really the key points to phishing. They want you to do something. They're trying to deceive you. They're very convincing. They use really, really good tactics to make this hard to detect, and they can deliver in multiple forms. And it's just a really fascinating attack method. They're always evolving, always learning new things. It's a cat and mouse game. Even with all these new controls that we have in place and technical measures to make it harder, the attackers still find new ways.
Yes, I know that in Australia, one of the SMS ones in particular that I'm familiar with is actually our Australia Post, where they say that you've got a delivery and you got to click the link and that kind of thing. So I have seen examples of exactly what you're talking about. And like you said, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and that's a really great point, Jennifer, to bring up. Attackers will often use time-based messages or themed attacks. We've done simulated phishing examples for training purposes and stuff like that. And some of the most effective ones are around the holidays, like around Christmas. Everyone's getting packages from like Amazon and online retailers. So if you have like a themed message where it's December 22nd, someone's waiting for that Christmas gift or that holiday gift, and you get this message saying, hey, your package was delayed, or it's been delivered, or there was an error with it. Please click this link to figure out what's going on or resolve this issue so it gets delivered. Those tend to do very well, but there's other themes. Right now, we're in the middle of tax season in the US, so there's a lot of IRS-themed messages where they say, hey, there was a problem with your return. We need to contact you, or we need you to click on this link to interact with it, or there was a refund that you didn't get, or something like that. But they'll also do world events. So COVID-19, there was a lot of scams that went out around that time. Major events like hurricanes, earthquakes, like geopolitical events. Attackers will use that to their advantage and say, hey, we're going to send a COVID-themed phishing email because we know that's what everyone's thinking about right now. They change over time, and it's global. They will do anything that they can to get an advantage to increase their success rates.
Okay, can we just talk for a few minutes about what the real consequences are? So when a small firm is actually breached, do you have an example of something that, like, what actually happens operationally or financially, reputationally?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had one instance not too long ago, actually, where we responded. It was an instant response request. So they asked us to take a look at a phishing email that they received. There was an invoice that was sent to this organization, and it said, hey, we know that we have this outstanding invoice. You usually process it through this payment. We're changing to this new bank. Here's our updated form. Can you please wire the money to this new banking location? And unfortunately, the firm got that information. It was a very, very official looking email. The changes to that form were official too. They had somehow compromised the vendor's email account, looked through the forms, got a copy of it, and sent that out. So it was extremely convincing. Unfortunately, that business, it was something for the tune of $50,000 for this invoice. It was a very large invoice. They had already sent that payment out to these attackers, and the legitimate vendor who actually had that invoice and that needed that payment then sent an email to them a week or two later and said, hey, this invoice is still outstanding. And the business side of that, they said, wait a second, we paid that 2 weeks ago. Here's the receipt. And the business on the receiving said, yeah, we don't have a bank account in the Cayman Islands. That's not ours. We never received that money. So they called us in to take a look at it. We did a full investigation. We looked through all the technical details of the email. We realized that, hey, it was not actually sent by the original organization that you thought it was. And unfortunately, that business, they were still on the hook for paying that $50,000 invoice. So not only did they send that invoice to the wrong vendor, the wrong service, they sent it to the wrong bank, they still owed money for those services that they received. So they had to pay it twice. And for a small business, that is a huge setback. It's a lot of money to lose. And unfortunately, it's very difficult for law enforcement to try and recoup that money because, especially after 2 weeks, it's probably been moved, it's probably gone, and it's a long process. If you can't even get any of it back, that's going to require probably some legal fees and associations with that might not make it worth pursuing. So they were actually out a lot of money. It was a very small shop. They did not have any IT security in place. They didn't have any IT people at all. It was just like a family business, and it was very sad because there wasn't much we could do at that point. We did our full investigation. We helped them out along the way and implemented some controls to stop that from happening in the future. But unfortunately, like I said, the damage was done. They had already sent the money out and processed that. And I want to touch a little bit about the key buzzword right now. Everyone's talking about AI. It's in the news all the time. It's on everything. You can't get away from it. It's being put into every single vendor and every tool that you get and stuff like that. And attackers are using AI too to their advantage. And this is a new technology for everyone, both on the offense and the defense. And what I'm seeing and what I think that is making it more prevalent in the attacker space is that they can now craft very convincing emails very quickly in a bunch of different languages. So before they could use like Google Translate or something like that and say, hey, write this letter or write this email asking for an invoice payment in German, write it in Spanish, write it in English, whatever, and it would translate it. Now that's just like one prompt in Google Gemini or ChatGPT or something like that. Say, hey, craft me a convincing invoice email and put it in these 3 languages. And you pick your 3 languages of choice. And then it crafts that email and you can send it out really quickly. And we used to teach a lot, hey, if it's spelled incorrectly, if the tone is off, that's probably a strong indicator that these attackers don't speak English and they wrote like a sloppy email. That is happening less and less now. The use of AI is making those emails a lot more convincing. There's a lot less spelling errors, and they can generate other things they can generate really quickly are like logos. They can say, hey, here's a logo of my company, which is not really their company. I want you to make it again for this email, or I want you to reproduce it, or I want you to replicate this in a different manner, or put it on a website or something like that. And they can use that very, very quickly, very, very easily. It's not a big technical burden or lift for them to do, and they can reiterate that multiple times over and over again for these different campaigns, and then send out this mass campaign of emails to hundreds or thousands of people with very little work.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I think that AI is a tool that everyone is implementing on both sides. And for all its benefits, it's always going to have its flaws. It will never be a foolproof system. But for listeners today that are a small business without an IT, what are the 3 most important things that they should implement straight away? And how much of the cybersecurity really comes down to the human behavior?
Yeah, so humans can be your best asset or your weakest link on the network. And it comes down to a little bit of training, awareness, knowledge, things like that, some of the soft skills. You could have the best technical controls in the world, but if you're still not aware of attacks, you're still not trying to get better and learning about some of these things or having resources to touch into, you can still have a bad day, be very, very busy, very caught off guard, and interact with one of these malicious messages that we talked about and fall victim to it. So the three main things that we talk about that we try and do as a baseline that really anyone can do, it doesn't really require a ton of technical skill or depth, but the first one is multi-factor authentication. So implementing multi-factor authentication everywhere you can is typically one of our internal recommendations. Like multi-factor authentication, it's using something other than a username and password. It's something you have or something you are to make that authentication more secure. We usually recommend using like an authenticator app or something like that, or getting a text message on your phone. And that makes it just that much harder. It's not immune to attacks, but it makes it harder for the attackers if they do compromise your information, your credentials or something like that. They need that other form of identification to get in. So they need that code or they need something else to make it harder to get in. So most services, most of the large platforms, I know like QuickBooks and Xero and the accounting softwares, they will have that feature. Most email platform providers will have that feature as well. So if you turn that on and you require it every time you log in or every so often, that's going to make it harder. The second thing is having backups. So having backups of your data is critical, because if something happens to your machine and you don't have that information and it goes away, then you've just lost all of your client records, you've lost all of your invoices, all of your personal information and things like that. And that doesn't even have to be like a cyber attack. That could just be, hey, a pipe burst in your house and your computer got flooded. And if you don't have that data saved anywhere, yeah, there are ways to recover it. You can take it to a specialized firm or a specialized individual to try and restore that data. It's going to be extremely costly, and sometimes even they can't do it. If it's too far gone, or God forbid, like a fire or something occurs, if you don't have anything else other than that physical hard drive that's storing your data, then you're in a really tough spot. So having backups enabled is probably my second biggest takeaway for someone that's a small shop that wants to improve their process. The third one is just updating your machine and having some sort of like endpoint protection. So updates on your machine, there's software updates that come out periodically. Those fix like known bugs or security vulnerabilities or glitches or things like that. The longer you go without those patches, the more attacks that you are vulnerable to. So the larger your attack surface grows. So if you're using like an older system and you don't apply patches, it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. If you're using the latest and greatest like Windows 11 and you're applying patches automatically or very, very regularly, your attack surface is going to shrink because there's not as many bugs and glitches and vulnerabilities that are available. Again, doesn't make you immune, but it helps you. It helps your system and makes it harder. It makes it a little bit more difficult for the attackers to get in. And running an antivirus on your machine, that's a system that sits in the background. It runs on your machine. It scans files that are incoming. It scans processes that are running on your PC. It's going to stop that activity. It's going to block it. It's going to quarantine things and stop them from spreading. Those are great, but if they're not updating, if your antivirus, again, back to the updates, if it's not constantly getting new, they're called signatures, but new pieces of code for these new attacks that are changing every single minute of every single day, then it's not as effective as it could be as if it was getting those updates and staying up to date. So if I could only do three things for a firm to help them out, that is what I would recommend out of the gate. Now, there's a lot of other things to get more mature, and one of the things that we focus on a lot is no one is going to go from zero to hero overnight. That is going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be a lot of time and a lot of resources. It's probably not going to be the most cost-effective or efficient manner out of the gate. But if you can do things over time, you're going to grow and get mature as an organization. And what we always tell people is progress is defensible. So if you're making progress and you're constantly adding new things and new controls and you're building over time, you can defend against that in like civil or legal matters because you can say, hey, I was trying to get compliant or I was trying to implement the best practices. If you don't and you do nothing and you say, hey, I didn't think that applied to me, or I didn't think I was at risk, or I used online services, so I thought I was safe, or I thought my vendor was handling all that, that's not really a good defense because you haven't really made any progress. You haven't done anything and you've been open for months or years and really made any progress in that space. So just to set the record straight, don't think you have to implement a bunch of things up front. You can just start with some basic policies, some basic controls in place. Do that for maybe 6 months or a year, and then next year be like, okay, that worked. Now let's do some more stuff. Let's get a little bit more advanced. Let's get a little bit more proactive, because in this space, being proactive, it's just like accounting and bookkeeping. If you wait till the end of the year to reconcile all your books, you have a lot of work to do. And I know it's a lot of work because I have an accounting degree. I've been in this space before. But if you do weekly or monthly reconciliations and you're like, hey, I'm going to do a little bit of work over this long period of time, then at the end of the year, it's really easy. You just get your accounting file and you process your return and you're done because everything's cleaned up. So it's those increment steps over time really add up and make things a lot better for you, because if you have to call in an incident response firm, it's very pricey and it adds up really quick. We're talking hundreds of dollars an hour to do these kind of very detailed technical investigations on what exactly happened, producing a report, trying to clean things up, trying to get you back into a good known state. But then also you have a duty to notify your clients too that, hey, I was compromised. There's regulatory rules in place that say you have to notify people, and whether that's a government entity or just your clients in general, to say, I was compromised. This is the data that happened, or this is the data that was lost. We're going to rebuild and move forward. That's not really a great look for you facing your clients either. So it can, these little increment steps can save you a lot over time and not be such this huge undertaking and burden.
Yeah. I'm just going to summarize that again for people, that the 3 steps you really want to prioritize from today on your own would be multi-factor authenticators. Get them in place for yourself, get them in place for your staff. Make that a priority. Make sure you've got backups of your systems. Don't rely on other systems to have backups or assume there are backups in place. And keep in mind that physical backups kept in the same location could face the same risks, same physical damage. And then the third one was antivirus and updates, making sure that anything you have implemented for you and your team is kept updated on a regular basis, and putting those policies and procedures in place and making sure they're happening. This is also something that you can help your clients to implement as well, or encourage that they implement. So if you could give one piece of advice to every small business listening, what would it be?
I would say my initial advice is to start doing something now. The sooner that you can start getting this in your mindset and starting to move your firm to a more secure state, the better. And maybe that's just getting a policy in place. Like maybe you just need to get an information security policy, have something documented saying that these are the things that I want to do. This is the process I want to follow. That is just in itself a great starting point to help build your program over time. There's templates that you can try and find, or you can write this yourself to try and figure out what are the best practices that I want to do. And that's going to help you too. One thing we didn't really talk about much, Jennifer, is if a firm or a client comes to you and asks, hey, are you doing anything for cybersecurity? If you don't have anything in place, that's not really going to look that great. But if you have just this basic policy starting out that's saying, this is what I do for cybersecurity, or this is why this is so important to me, because I need to protect your data because you are trusting me to do your bookkeeping or to manage your assets, I need to have something in place. So I would say start as soon as possible, start somewhere, reach out to someone or do some research on your own to try and get some controls in place because, like I said before, telling an organization that you didn't know this applied to you or that you weren't at risk or that the threats weren't real, that's not a good defense and it's not going to go well for you. And I don't want people to be in that space. This is one of my driving forces. I hate to see these bad actors impacting good people because they're criminals, they're bad people, they're using the money that they get from people to do other bad things. And accountants, bookkeepers, like financial individuals, like they're trying to do good. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to help businesses. They have legal, good businesses. And when these attackers impact you, they're taking money from you to go do bad things with it. And it's a battle we've been fighting for a long time, and we're going to keep fighting it because, again, you guys have the data, you have the records, there's value in the information that you process, and you are a target.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even building on that more, it's about everybody listening today remembering that just like the accounting and finance world and tax world is constantly evolving and there's constantly changes to laws and things, the cybersecurity side of things, the IT world, is moving just as fast or even faster than our own industry. And so what that means is that as you're implementing things, just because it hasn't happened yet, it's not a case of if anymore. It really is a case of when. So as Nick said, taking those actions, taking those steps, doing the research, it is so pivotal to improving your business and your practice and things for your clients as well. So Nick, thank you so much. I feel like this has been an incredibly eye-opening discussion. Cybersecurity isn't just an IT issue. It really is a business survival issue. And to our listeners, if this episode made you slightly uncomfortable, I'm going to say that's good. That's the point. That's the one action I want you to take this week. Please don't ignore that feeling. It is pivotal that you start taking action. So Nick, where can people connect with you and your practice?
Yeah, I'm only really active on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I post almost daily about different cybersecurity threats and tips and things like that to help protect you. I'd love to chat with you about that. We also have a website up, so intoosecurity.com. We've got a LinkedIn page too that we're constantly sharing things with our individuals. So you can shoot me an email, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two best ways to get a hold of us and just chat. Nick, my other partner, and I, we don't charge to discuss cybersecurity. So if you have a question, you just want a resource, or you want something, a sanity check, we're happy to discuss things with you and talk through something, even if it's not a technology or control that we handle at our firm specifically. We're happy to have that conversation with you, point you in the right direction and help you out and just be that trusted resource or individual and talk through things. And then maybe down the road, if you are looking to protect your firm and to get more serious about cybersecurity, then we are the people that you want to talk to.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing that. Please know that all of Nick's contact information and links are going to be in those show notes. He is willing to work with anyone, anywhere. This is a global market in terms of putting in the supports. So thank you so much for listening today. I really hope you gained some value and some actionable steps. And we'll see you in the next Better in Business podcast episode.
I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. I would love to help you start doing better in business right now by giving you a free little ebook. It's a how-to guide. It's called The 7 Deadly Cash Flow Sins. And also I've developed a business health check for you. It's super high value. Both are available at betterinbusiness.global. If you would like to fire your bookkeeper and hire a strategic bookkeeper to start enjoying a return on investment and get the support you need to optimize your business cash and profit and time wealth, simply visit betterinbusiness.global, drop me a line and I'll connect you with a certified strategic bookkeeper near you. I'll see you in the next episode.